Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another high-level match of StarCraft 2. Now, what I've got for you today is an absolute train wreck of a Zerg versus Protoss. If you like watching crazy games of SC2, I think that this match will be right up your alley. So, the map is inside and out, and spawning right here in the top right-hand corner, playing with the red Zerg drones. We have an absolute channel favorite who recently decided to return to pro gaming once again. We're looking at Bly's main hatchery. His opponent, in the opposite corner, likewise a name that you may not have heard of in quite a while, because this man quite literally quit the game in like 2011, and he decided to return literally a decade later. Playing with the blue Protoss probes, we're looking at KingCobra's main Nexus. Alrighty, now the reason why I know that this game is a bit of a disaster is because of the fact that I casted this match during DreamHack Atlanta together with Nathanius just a couple of weeks ago. So this was a game that I casted live while it was happening on Twitch, and at the time the rules at ESL stated that I couldn't share this replay with you just yet. Since then, they decided to change the rules up, and as a matter of fact, they've even sent over a nice little replay pack with all of the best games of the tournament so far. So if you are interested in checking out any of those games, make sure to subscribe so you get notified as soon as I upload my future content, because, well, I'll be casting the very best games of DreamHack Atlanta so far over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so Bly decides to start off with what I like to call the Bly Special. It's a spawning pool first into a hatchery inside of your opponent's natural. Normally we see this inside of the Zerg's natural, but apparently Bly likes building it on the other side of the map. This is one of those builds that is designed to try and throw the opponent off. KingCobra, however, well familiar with the meta literally a decade ago, decides to go for a Forge Fast Expend. This is a horrible build in pretty much every scenario, but the Forge is going to be pretty great right now because, well, look at this. The photon cannon is going to be able to push back the Zerglings. It's going to be able to deny the hatchery. So KingCobra right here playing the opponent rather than the matchup. I mean, obviously you could still try to cannon rush your opponent on the other side of the map, but it's a little bit shaky, right? Cannon rushes in general, not that popular at the highest level of StarCraft 2. Alright, that being said, obviously even when you get denied over here in the natural, it's still successfully throwing the Protoss player off a little bit, which is why I think that this is an excellent ladder build. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the engineering bay blocks that we see all the time, or like, for example, the probe pools in the earlier stages of the game to try and like block the Zerg's natural. It's one of those builds that can really throw the opponent off really, really nicely if you're executing it cleanly. And now, okay, after canceling the hatch and, well, turning into an Evo chamber for just a moment, the drone gets into the main base and it scouts the Stargate follow-up. In the meantime, Bly has built 2 hatcheries on the other side of the map. Brenda over here is also marching down the ramp, and we're gonna see both of these players macro up for just a moment. Now, today is a bit of a special day, because as of me recording this, it is the 29th of October 2022, and today is the day that I turned 30 years old. How do you do, fellow StarCraft boomers? I was actually originally going to cast some viewer games today, but then ESL reached out and they were like, hey, Lowko, do you want to cast some of these games instead? And I was like, you know what? Sure, I'll cast some viewer games later again, probably sometime next week. But yeah, gonna spend a little bit of time this morning casting some crazy games. Should be a lot of fun. All right, so Void Ray coming up first. I actually like the fact that KingCobra decides to go for a Void Ray here. Normally, I'd be questioning it, but KingCobra very much so playing the opponent. At this point, he doesn't really know much, right? It's not like he's got a adept out on the map to really scout the opponent out, so he doesn't know if there's maybe like a one-base Roach push or a Ravager push, right? We see those kind of builds coming out of Bly all of the time. It's not happening in this particular game, but what is happening, by the way, is another Bly special. Rather than going Metabolic Boost first, he just researched Burrow. I would consider this a mistake from practically everybody. But whenever Bly goes for something where you're scratching your head, it's probably best to assume it's on purpose. So it's, yeah, the Burrow research before the Zergling Speed upgrade. Zergling Speed is the first upgrade in 99.9% of Zerg games. Maybe there's like the occasional 2-base opener where, you know, Zerg will not go for that. But most of the time, I do think Metabolic Boost is really good. But apparently Bly, yep, goes straight into the lair right now as well. Building a lot of Overlords, by the way. That is certainly a little suboptimal. Anyhow, after the Void Ray, an Oracle has been built as well. This is something that we see Zaun do quite a bit, actually. Problem for Bly is that he's probably not been watching as much SC2 recently either. And it turns out, I remember this Oracle very clearly. It turns out he has no defense inside of the main base whatsoever. He saw the Void Ray first, and in the past, whenever it was a Void Ray, it would be followed with another Void Ray, and then another Void Ray, and then another Void Ray. In the current meta of StarCraft 2, Oracles are incredibly popular. And even though, yeah, there was a Void Ray made first, that Void Ray was just for safety, sniping a couple Overlords, making sure Zerglings are not gonna deny the third Nexus, although, well, in this game, Zerglings couldn't have come in, because there wasn't any link speed yet. Anyhow, Oracle's gonna continuously zap away at these drones, and this is some excellent damage here being done by KingCobra. The thing is, in the meantime, on the other side of the map, in case you're unfamiliar, KingCobra, also a bit of a memer, he decided to follow this up with a very, very quick fleet beacon, and is now at the 6-minute mark, chrono boosting out to Tempest. Double Tempest opener here from KingCobra. Tempests are really good, especially if you can get a bunch of them out all at once. So if you can save up these units until you have like 5 of them, you can actually start one-shotting queens. The thing is, Bly went for a very, very quick lair. Overseer is going to scout out exactly what's happening. So now the Zerg player here is well aware of exactly what's happening inside of the main base of the Protoss. But what exactly do you do against this? There's only really one reliable option that Zerg has at this stage in the game to deal with those units, and that would be a Spire. I think you pretty much have to go into a Spire, and you have to go into Corruptors in order to properly deal with Tempest. But obviously, you could also be calling the Protoss players bluff, in the sense that, well, they just got scouted, so are they really going to double down on that Tempest production after being spotted? Because like I said, ideally you save up until you have a bunch of them so you can deal maximum amount of damage. You can suddenly show up, pop all of the queens in, you know, one fell swoop. Spires take a pretty long time to build, so Zergs won't be able to just rush that out very easily. And the chances of Zerg going for a blind Spire, even Mr. Bly, not that significant. One thing, though, that Bly has got going for him here is a lot of bases. Despite all of those drone losses that we saw from that one Oracle, the economy here for Zerg is looking pretty good. KingCobra, though, is going to have to venture out into the map. He already decides to go for the +1 flyer attacks. He's now decided to go for the charge research, too, and he's really doubling down on his production, mixing in a Templar Archives as well, so he can go into either High Templar or, of course, Archons, too. Mama Ship coming up 7.5 minutes into the game. In the meantime, the Tempests, they're ready to do a little bit of harassment here on the right side. It's going to be a while until the Corruptors are going to be able to push this back. Although, actually, I say Corruptors. If I recall correctly, this is where I... Oh, no, he does go for Corruptors. I thought he went for Mutas first. Okay, never mind. I thought he decided to go for a lot of Mutas here. Maybe it's just a couple Corruptors and then into a bunch of Mutalisks. The Corruptors are pretty good at pushing back this army. The thing is, there's 4 Tempests out. 4 Tempests is... it's kind of shaky. Like, it still requires a lot of the units to be 2-shot instead. And yeah, if you get spotted, it's just not... It's not entirely ideal. Anyways, Burrow hasn't much been utilized yet at this point. Maybe what Bly was originally planning on doing is burrowing a Zergling inside of his opponent's third base location. But instead, he, is now trying to leverage himself into that tunneling claws research. This allows the Roaches to go underground and tunnel across. Again, not something that we see a whole lot in Zerg versus Protoss, but definitely something that can deal a lot of damage if executed properly. Now 13 Mutas are coming up. Look at the production tab. None of this makes any sense in a normal game of high-level ZVP. Look at the amount of Templar already as well. 6 of them just waiting. Storm is done, so they're going to be able to deal quite a bit of damage on the other side of the map. The little spikes now indicate on these Roaches that they do indeed have tunneling claws. I think that's probably why we do see him doubling down right now on a couple of those photon cannons too. Queens in the meantime forced to deal with a couple of those Zealot run-bys, but KingCobra really just aiming to build one big death ball here, right? That's at the very least the vibe that he's got going right now. Whenever you go for a Mama Ship this early, it's pretty good. Now Mutas, unexpected. Unexpected in, again, a conventional game of StarCraft 2. They suddenly showed up, not normally something you do against, well, you know, Tempest carrier type of armies. This is now forcing KingCobra to go into something that's a little bit more reliable, and apparently he decides to go for a Phoenix. A lot of probes are going down, but at the same time, there's a Zealot run by at the 12 o'clock position, absolutely massacring an entire mineral line there from the Zerg player. So nice little bit of, yeah, thinking there from our Protoss player as well. Gonna be able to get rid of a few of those queens, it seems, and that's gonna make, yeah, all of this actually quite okay for the Protoss. Like, sure, you lose 26 probes, but if you also kill 16 drones in the meantime, plus your opponent is now stuck on a bunch of mutas. Mutas are pretty good, but they definitely can get countered pretty hard, right? If one Archon gets underneath them, or a couple of good Storms land, or say you get a nice group of Phoenixes out, those mutas can get shut down pretty hard, and this is a rather expensive investment right here from Bly. Okay. Protoss has been slowed down a little bit, but KingCobra, yeah, he's got a decent amount of economy still, and he's going to be able to rebuild those workers 4 at a time. Creep spread is looking absolutely ridiculous, by the way. Don't want to storm your own probes. Very careful there. Storm does deal friendly fire, by the way. I've never really considered cloaking one of your bases and mineral lines to be a particularly great defense against Muta run-bys, but hey, can certainly work out. Okay. Couple of those High Templar do get hit. Nice little bit of magic boxing here from the Zerg player as well. It's going to be able to get rid of this, the shenanigans. Probes in the meantime on the left side of the map also had to run, but Bly has already teched himself all the way up to the Ultralisk cavern. Ultras, not a particularly great unit in the Zerg versus Protoss matchup. However, they can be incredibly useful. So Ultras, they don't really die, right? Like, they're very, very tanky units. They're usually the ones that will stay alive for the longest time in one of those major engagements. And if there's not a lot on the ground, so at this point we're talking, well, mostly High Templar, I guess, and then a couple of Stalkers and maybe, you know, an Archon or two. If there's nothing on the ground, Zerg players can actually get on top of the High Templar and take them out of the equation very, very quickly. So Ultras can oftentimes be super useful at run-bys and taking care of either like Disruptors or, for example, those High Templars. So even though it's a bit of a funky unit and we don't see it all too much, I do think it has a lot of potential. Now at this point, ooh, yeah, we definitely want to have a little bit more range there on those Phoenixes. The Phoenixes do have the Anion Pulse Crystals research done, so they get additional range, and those Mutas, they're gonna have to run for their lives. But yeah, I've definitely played a bunch of games where, like, even Hydra Ultralisk works quite well, or for example, Corruptor Ultralisk. As long as you get rid of the High Templar, the Corruptors or the Hydras can clean up most everything else. One thing, though, that's kind of tricky here for KingCobra is that while he is building a fantastic army, he's gonna have a hard time taking another base, because there's creep at all of the next locations that he could be aiming for. There is detection over here. That photon cannon from the early game. Okay, these roaches just do not care. Okay, one of them did get behind the mineral line there in the end. At the same time, a little bit of a hit over here too, but KingCobra doing a good job clearing out some of these units as well. Just being obnoxious, right? Just buying time. A lot of worker harassment in this game so far. Ultralisks, 4 of them. Actually, no, 4 on the production tab, but that is in addition to the 2 that are already out. Zealot run by on the left side of the map. Aiming for a hatchery in the top left, but it turns out that one has not been planted yet. They did, however, march over the creep, so yeah, they were indeed spotted on the minimap. And now the Ultralisks are also spotted. As soon as he saw the Ultra, KingCobra immediately chrono boosts out an Immortal. And I think that's the right call, yeah. So Immortals are incredibly good. You do have to sort of shift queue between the Ultralisks specifically, because if you just attack move, the Immortals have a chance of just killing the Lings and the Banes instead, and that's really not what you want to do with them. So you do have to shift queue, and it is going to require a little bit of micro, but overall, they are a very, very good counter against Ultras. And I guess shift queuing Ultras is not that hard, right? They're absolutely massive. Fun fact, by the way. If you lift up Banelings with your Phoenixes, and the Phoenixes then kill one of the Banelings, magically, the Banelings still deal ground damage, even though they're up in the air. You'd imagine they become like Scourge, you know, like air banelings, but that's not how that works. They're still considered ground units, even when up in the air. Alright, now the Corruptors have shown up, though, and there's a good amount of them. This is obviously the problem with these Zerg armies, right? The Zerg can just tech switch very, very quickly, and it's difficult to predict what Zerg is going to do next, especially when their name starts with a B and ends with lie. Anyways, the Mama Ship is constantly cloaking. I think it's actually kind of an underrated mechanic. The fact that it's like cloaking all of these units and structures and stuff makes it really hard for Zerg to get proper damage in. You can't actually see what's happening, and obviously you can't blow up your, well, you can blow up your banelings manually, but... Anyways, Ultras and Queens. Together on one control group, it seems. Queens, of course, have a skill called Transfusion that allows them to heal those units, well, back up to full, but they can only use that spell on creep. Luckily here, though, for Bly, the creep is quite literally at the Protoss' 4th base. Protoss army, though, still getting stronger, still getting better. Yeah, I don't think you can really fight that. Off creep? Definitely not. Maybe on creep. At the same time, though, Corruptor Hit Squad has moved on over towards the base, and they're going to be able to get rid of a Nexus. At the same time, though, the Protoss army getting rid of a hatchery here in the bottom right. And, ooh, free Viper there, too. Okay. An eye for an eye, but I think the eye here of KingCobra was a little bit more valuable, because Bly already has so many hatcheries up. His economy is decent. It's honestly not amazing. 81 drones is good, and he's going to get quite a bit of income. As a matter of fact, he has had the income advantage here for the last 10 minutes or so, but it's not like his income is absolutely mind-bogglingly good. Probes once again being killed here in the bottom right. This is +3 Zerglings with Adrenal Glands. So, yeah, that is something that deals a lot of damage. And once again, more and more probes are falling. 74 workers have gone down in this game so far. KingCobra's game plan is to make an army that can bulldoze towards the other side of the map. His main goal here is to just march through the center of the map, kill everything that the Zerg player throws at him, and hopefully kill the reinforcing army of the Zerg player too. So even though he's gone for some Zealot run-bys and all that, that is just to be a nuisance. Careful with the High Templar. Just to be a nuisance, he does not care that much. And we're getting to the point where this Protoss army is looking absolutely formidable. We do have, yeah, 28 Corruptors. 28 Corruptors is good. But it's also important to note that this is not that heavy of a Skytools army. Like, it's 6 carriers, 4 Tempest, and a Mama Ship. But there's a lot of units now on the ground as well. Archon Immortal is very strong. Alright, Zerglings trying to go for a run-by in the natural. Stalker still in the wall off. Should be able to get rid of those units pretty easily. Immortal army here is growing. Would love to see additional research as well for the Protoss air units as well as the ground units. Zerg is researching a little bit of everything, which I don't think is a bad idea. One problem though here for KingCobra is that he's running out of money. So, yeah, obviously he's lost a lot of probes. He can replace those lost workers with more army supply, and that's quite helpful. Okay, there's an abduction. Getting rid of one of those Tempests pretty easily. But if you decide to replace all of your probes, all of that supply with attacking units instead, you are going to be completely all in. Base in the bottom right-hand corner right now acquired. I would love to see Bly taking the base in the top left. I think it's important for him to, yeah, get that economy underway. And to start building up the Spore Crawler forest. So, one way to prevent that Protoss Bulldozer attack is by having like 100 Spore Crawlers out. I would love to see those burrow in advance. That would be so sick. We don't really see that all too much, but if he burrows those in advance and catches the probe transfer, that would be amazing. Anyways, Vipers here are trying to abduct whatever they can. Zerglings in the meantime. Okay, just kill that Nexus in a heartbeat. Oh, no! Didn't even have to burrow. Here comes the Bulldozer, though. KingCobra has had enough. 139 army supply here for Protoss versus 128 for the Zerg. One Ultra, popped in a heartbeat. Infestors also sniped pretty easily. And even though some Spore Crawlers are built on the right side and there's some right here in the middle, this is a Protoss army that does not really care. Zergling run by once again happening, but the plan here for KingCobra is to win the game. As a matter of fact, he's even storming his own High Templar. This is an army that is made to win the game. There's an abduction, that's really nice. Banelings trying to come in from the flank, but they mostly destroyed. Yeah, they're mostly destroyed before the High Templar get reached. Massive storm right there with those Templar as well, on top of all of the Corruptors. And now suddenly that Protoss army is looking quite formidable. 6 additional Ultralisks are coming up here for our Zerg. Okay, a couple of the Tempest miscontrolled, out of position. Carrier also is going to find its death right over here. There's a recall right now towards the Mama ship. So rather than going back home, KingCobra decided to bring the reinforcements to the front of the army instead. Breaking through this section of the map is not going to be easy for Zerglings. So KingCobra is basically saying, yo, I do not need an economy anymore. All I need to do is kill you before you can kill me. And it's going to be hard for Zerg to make their way through this, right? Zerglings are going to have a very hard time, especially with battery overcharge and like 6 storms available, to make their way through that. And the main base of the Zerg is being absolutely cleaned up right now. New Ultralisk cavern being made on the right side of the map. Another spire, another spawning pool happening there as well. KingCobra could be heading on over in that direction pretty easily, but he doesn't really know. If I were to make a guess, I'd probably assume that the bases were in the top left-hand corner instead. Okay. Where's the income at? At this point, Protoss is essentially getting nothing. About 200 minerals a minute. He gets a couple zealots a minute, but that's really about it. New hatchery made in the middle of the map as well. So, of course, the actual win condition in a game of StarCraft 2 is to destroy all of your opponent's structures. And, if your opponent can't find the structures, that makes the game a little bit easier. Unlikely position for a hatchery to be spotted, although there's a good chance that, well, in this intersection, I suppose, the Protoss units are gonna pass by eventually. Okay, Spine Crawlers get murdered. KingCobra indeed making a move towards the top left-hand corner. Clearing out the creep along the way as well. Yep. Overlord Cloud is gonna have to move away here. Losing those Overlords would actually be really quite bad here for the Zerg. He's forced to split the Overlords. They're making an escape, but that is still a bunch of them going down. Bly right now hitting a supply block. And at this stage in the game, you really don't want to be spending what little money you have on a bunch of Overlords. Alright, nice play right there by KingCobra. But he has not found all of the Zerg bases yet. Zerg is, well, expanded all over the map. There's bases quite literally everywhere. My god. That is quite a scary army. A whole lot of Ultralisks tasked with protecting that army. Looks like the Mama ship, actually. I'm gonna back off for just a second, sorry. It turns out that apparently the Mama ship over here gets abducted after those Overlords get killed. I mean, I was looking at a bunch of new Overlords being made and a few hatcheries here and there, but it looks like I missed a major engagement. Corruptors take a long time to regenerate out of combat. But as long as you don't fly them into a storm or over the Archons, they should be able to stay alive. There we go. Mama ship gets abducted. Time warp is pushed down, but it's not going to bother these units all too much. There's another abduction and more harpooning going down. That's 2 additional... Oh, okay. Small little jump on that one. That's 2 additional carriers also picked off. One zealot here has now scouted the base on the left side of the map as well as a ton of drones. At this point, though, the majority of the Protoss army is no longer flying units. So despite the fact that Bly has about a 50-60 supply lead, a lot of that supply is caught up in units that don't really serve much of a purpose. Bly never made a Greater Spire, and without a Greater Spire, how in the world are you going to engage this? Apparently, well, he's just going to try and collapse on top of this army using all of those Ultralisks. Ultralisks try to do as much damage as possible, but the Immortals covered very nicely in the inside of that fight, right? They're gonna be able to shut down those Ultras pretty smoothly. Archons around the Immortals. I don't know if that was microed like that or if that was intentional, but that was beautiful. Keeping those, those Immortals as protected as possible, it just now allowed KingCobra to clean up the majority of those heavy hitters here from the Zerg. Another Ultra is coming out. At this point, though, okay, the Corruptor's not very useful anymore when it comes to fighting the main army. They are, I guess, soaking up some of that storm energy. They were thinking about going for some damage here on the other side of the map, using that caustic spray ability on any structure that they could find, but also denied over there is Mr. Bly. Still, Zerg is mining. Zerg is mining on the left side of the map. Protoss, at this point, has given up on doing any sort of mining. 4 workers here. Yeah, they're all tasked with, I guess, mining these last 400 minerals, but it's gonna take them a while, and it's not particularly efficient. Zergling here burrowed at the front, scouting where the reinforcements are coming out of, so that's nice. Spawning pool at this point, that is spawning pool number 3, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Spawning pool number 3, coming up on the left side of the map, too. That hatchery here on the intersection, also spotted. It's buying a bunch of time. Bly just following around these units from a bit of a distance with the Corruptors. But what exactly do you make here? What do you make here as a Zerg? Zerglings are gonna get destroyed by the Archons. Roaches and Ravagers are gonna get destroyed by the Immortals. Ideally, you'd go for the Greater Spire. Ideally, you'd morph these units into Brute Lords. There's nothing that the Protoss player could really do against that. But Bly has obviously lost the main base. He has no way to tech up towards that because he doesn't have the time. Swarm Host, I guess, would be another option, but it's gonna be a while until we get to that tech route, and especially if KingCobra keeps finding these bases. Okay. Here's the damage being done, though. A lot of Corruptors just trying to be useful wherever they can, puking on whatever structure they can. Burrow here being utilized to keep some of those drones alive, but KingCobra is getting rid of the base on the left side of the map, too. There's still 2 Ultralisks available, only 3 drones. Still some money in the bank, so Bly could rebuild a hatchery if he wants to, and he should probably, because he's going to be revealed otherwise. Main Nexus slowly, yeah, being trickled away on. Okay, I guess that's the natural Nexus, but gets picked off regardless, and now we're going to start long-distance mining those couple hundred minerals that are remaining still in the natural. KingCobra marching around the map. Shooting lasers left, right, and center. No council on that hatchery, so KingCobra kills another base. Scouting around with an observer, heading towards the top left-hand corner, constantly looking around the map. Main base in a little bit of trouble right now, but there's one hero, Archon, that's been tasked with, well, keeping this base alive. And against both Zerglings as well as Corruptors, it's going to be pretty amazing. There are a couple of Ultras here, but do you really want to send that in, especially when Protoss could just recall their entire army back towards the main base? The Observer scouted the hatchery in the top left-hand corner, but currently the Protoss army is in the bottom right. You gotta be careful here. Archon is actually a little bit too thick to properly move around the base. So, yeah, if you can start puking on some of these locations, that's pretty good. Okay, I did find a little nuke to squeeze through. A couple of Zealots here get sacrificed. They were tasked with going over towards the top left-hand corner. The main question is there enough Protoss remaining to kill this? You know what? As long as the target firing is good, this should be very manageable. There's no blink or anything like that. The, Protoss units are also not as well upgraded as the Zergs. No shields and no armor upgrades on these units. That's a little bit surprising, actually. Anyways, hatchery was cancelled and remade on the right side of the map. Ultras now going to town in the natural expansion of our Protoss player. They, of course, want to hunt down that Archon. Once the Archon is gone, okay, life's going to get a little bit better. Nexus gets sniped as well, so no longer a recall available. At this point, though, okay, the Protoss units that are on the ground are making a beeline back home. Ultras thinking about going through the center of the map, and they end up getting sniped down here by the Archons and the Immortal. Okay, well, actually, one of them apparently ended up going down there. Second one is being chased for a little while, but it doesn't have a whole lot of hit points remaining, and obviously there's no queen anymore. That being said, the Nexus was destroyed. Protoss has no longer got any money to rebuild a Nexus, so these are all the structures that we're gonna see. Ultralisk still being chased. It's now apparently joined by a drone as well. Oh, sick juking and driving right there, but KingCobra does find the Ultra. And GG is cold. And just like that, it's our Protoss player who obtains the victory in this game of StarCraft 2.